Hello, beautiful people on the internet. It's me, Gratified What Ifs, and I'm here to tell you what if Deku had Ukeji's powers part 11. So, before I get into the video, please, everyone, do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and comment down below any kind of ideas that you have for me. So, now that I have gotten that checklist out of the way, let's head into the video. So everyone was shocked that Izuku and Bakugo had defeated the symbol of peace, All Might. It was a desperate attempt, but they defeated him nonetheless. Then they were like, wow, two of them separated, they are powerful, but together, they are scary. Everyone agreed with this. So Izuku had came over his emotional turmoil, yes, about All for One. Bakugo has said that he doesn't have to fight him alone, that he can always have backup. Izuku just began to laugh as he was hoisted up by Bakugo and said, fine, but I get the finishing blow. Then Bakugo smiles at him saying, deal. I knew that you'd come around. Then he put his arm around his shoulder and then started knocking his head like brothers do. And then, well, he started to hurt his arm. So they left and then went back home. The next day, they got all their results. The people that failed, they began to cry because they thought that they couldn't head into the camp training anymore. Then Eraserhead had, well, cleared everything up, telling them that they don't have to worry, you can still join the forest camp. Everyone began to cheer. But Eraserhead had cut that with a knife, saying that, but all of you that failed, you have to do twice the work. The people that failed began to moan because, well, they were sad, but at least they get to join the camp with all of their friends. So the next few days, they started to head to the mall to get everything that they need. Bug spray, camping boots, some gear for their support items if they need it. Izuku and Bakugo had went to the mall with Uraka and Ida and everyone else. Uraka had been avoiding Izuku. Izuku doesn't know why, but then she started to think about what Arayama said, and then she ran off. Izuku looked at Bakugo, saying, what's up with her? Bakugo shrugged, saying, I don't know, man. She's your friend, not mine. Then they began to explore the mall, see all the stuff they can get. Izuku was getting some gear to fix his support item, the gauntlets, because All Might had crushed one of them in the previous What If. When he was getting them, Tomura Shigaraki had appeared and then led into the water fountain, like in the anime, and then revealed himself. Izuku was about to strike him, but then he told him that he could easily kill everyone here. Izuku took this to heart and then began to listen to what he said. Izuku still said about how Stain's ideologies were more focused a bit, that's why people were following him. Tomura Shigaraki took this to heart and said, I get it now. Thanks, kid. You really helped a lot. He let go of Izuku's throat and then began to walk off. Izuku began to call the police immediately, but when they came, Tomura Shigaraki was gone and any trace that was found was just disappeared. Everyone was shocked about this and then they were scared. Bakugo began to ask him if he was alright. Izuku with a few bullets of sweat on his face was like, yeah, I am, just a little bit, I'm okay. A few days passed, they get on the bus to get ready for their forest camp training. They began to talk, Mineta can't hold his pee much longer. And then they got off the bus and the bus drove away, leaving them stranded on the road. All of class 1A was like, huh? What the? But what? Then the bushes began to rumble. Everyone just looked at the bushes. And the wild, wild pussycats appeared from the bushes. Mandalay, Pixie Bob, and Ragdoll. Everyone was looking at them saying, who the hell are these three? Pixie Bob began to get pissed and then started yelling that, don't you know us? What the wild, wild pussycats? Izuku had finished the sentence for them. You're one of the 100 top heroes. Then Pixie Bob said, see, at least this kid knows it. Then Izuku was about to tell them everything that he knows, including their age, and Pixie Bob has shut him up, saying that I'm 18 at heart. Anyway, the training begins now. Everyone was like, now? What does she? Pixie Bob started a landslide and then everyone fell in. But like, God, she couldn't be more mean if she wanted to. Then Mineta ran into the forest and then met a rock monster face to face. And he beat his pants. But before he could get wrecked by the monster, Izuku had saved him by punching the monster away. Mineta had been told him thank you. Izuku just said, Mineta, focus. If you're not careful, you could easily just die here. You're right. The camp training starts now. So let's prove to them that we're heroes wherever we go. Then one name had rallied behind him and then charged into the forest. Bakugo just told him, nice speech. Izuku just says thank you and then they ran into the forest. Pixie Bob, Mandalay, and Ragdoll had went into the forest earlier than them because they had their car parked somewhere else. And then started to time them, but they made it 1 hour earlier, seeing all the kinds of scratches and injuries, minor injuries, that they got. The only person that came out unscathed was Izuku due to his invulnerability. Mandalay began to congratulate them, but Pixie Bob began to ask Eraserhead about who Izuku is and why is he the only one that isn't injured. Eraserhead began to explain about Izuku's powers, and Pixie Bob was like, oh, he's that kid. Eraserhead is like, yeah. So, would you do me a favor and not mention that? He's kind of touchy about the subject. Pixie Bob is like, gotcha. Then after Mandalay had told them about how they are going to be cooking for themselves after today, but the Wild Wild Pussycats will cook to them for today. They head into the house and they began to rest. Izuku had been stopped by Koda and he nearly hit him, but he stopped and then he bent down and then telling the little boy that he should be careful, that he might get hurt if he gets into someone's way. Koda, without even responding, tries to punch Izuku in the jewels, but it just broke his hand. And then he ran to Mandalay saying, my hand, that mean boy punched me, that mean boy hurt me. He began to cry and he saw some of the bones of Koda's arm. Then he looked at Izuku saying, what? Everyone was looking at Izuku saying, so you're even invulnerable there? Then Izuku just looked at all of them saying, I'm invulnerable everywhere. So after that, Kabaku and Koda getting his arm in a cast, everyone began to start chilling. They ate their rice. Later in the night, they were chilling in the baths. Mineta began his pervertedness and then started climbing the wall like an experienced rock climber so that he could see the top. But then was stopped by Koda in a cast, who just grabbed a stick for the occasion because Mandalay did warn him because Mandalay did warn him about one of the students going girl crazy, and she was warned by Eraserhead, and then grabbed the stick and then poked it in Mineda's eye, which made him to fall. The girl started to thank the boy Koda, but then he began to fall. But luckily, Bakugo was able to catch him and then took him to Mandalay. Mandalay began to say sorry about Koda's behavior towards your friend. Bakugo was like, it's no big deal. At least he got a lesson from it. Then Mandalay started to tell Bakugo about what happened to Koda while he was still knocked out. And Bakugo began to feel sad for the poor boy, and then he understood why he hated heroes. So later that day, after that day had passed, a few days later, Class 1B had appeared in the forest as well. But they don't get that crazy training shit that happened to Class 1A, sadly. So Monoma was trying to say, why does it that Class 1A always gets the VIP treatment? So they entered the clearing and then saw that Monoma was absolutely fucking wrong, as they were seeing that Class 1A was pushing themselves to the limit, almost to the point where it almost looks like self-harming. Then they were like, is this what we're going to be doing during the training camp? And Monoma was like, serves them right. They get to suffer more than we did. But then after saying that, Class 1B just started to look at him, saying that, you're weird, Monoma. But before Monoma could even, counter-strike, saying that, Class 1A still deserves it, Tiger had come crashing into the trees right behind him, knocked out. And then Izuku started to come running up saying, oops, I'm sorry, but I thought that you could take my full 100%. Tiger, then everyone just looks at him saying that, what did you do? So he started to explain about the training with Tiger, about how Tiger was punching him and then telling him that he should improve his power. So then Tiger told him to punch him with everything that he got. Izuku was saying that, I'm not sure that you could take it, sir. And Tiger began to laugh and then said, I could take anything. So Izuku had punched him and then he started crashing through the trees. So he started to help Tiger up, and then Tiger was like, oh, you weren't kidding. Honestly, you have an amazing ability. Are you sure that you can improve it more? Izuku was like, I'm sure, but I can think of better ways of how I could use my abilities. So they began to start talking about how their powers are. And everyone was looking at the kid saying that, whoa. And Monima was trying to convince his classmates, saying that, don't say whoa to him. He's from Class 1A. But everyone just shrugged him off and then began their own training. A few days passed, and then it was the test of courage. Later in the night, everyone had went into the forest. Bakugo was replaced with Midoriya this time because Bakugo had went up to Koda since he didn't see him eat that day. Mandalay had told him that he's probably in the mountains, so he met up with Koda, and Koda was telling him to go away. Bakugo had told him that he knows about what happened to his parents and said that, kid, I know that you've lost much, but you shouldn't hate heroes because of it. Koda was just saying, why shouldn't I? Heroes is what caused my parents to get killed that day. Bakugo then just said that, there are more people that have suffered worse than you out there. You just have to not focus on the past and then just live in the future. Don't let something that happened then define you now. Because I was like, there's nobody on this earth that suffered worse than me. And Bakugo, he just began to laugh, saying that isn't true. In fact, I know somebody that has suffered even worse than almost anybody else. Who? Bakugo just pointed at his arm point out Koda's arm and say, the one that caused you that. Koda looked at his arm and is saying, that kid? But he seemed chill, relaxed. Not always. When he was about your age, he began to cry too. He didn't have a power back then. People thought that he was powerless, weak. But due to that, some nasty people had taken him away from his parents. And due to this, he was trapped in some place very dark and very scary, where they did terrible things to him until he was finally saved by heroes. So yes, heroes do die in situations like this, but for the greater good. If not for heroes, my friend would be dead. So that's why he's becoming a hero, so that no one else could go through that kind of suffering that he went through. Then Koda began to think about this until Muscular had appeared and then tried to swipe at Koda. But Bakugo, with one for all, was able to save him, but due to this, his phone was destroyed. And this is when the villains began their attack. Dabi had created a ring of fire around everywhere. Todoroki and Izuku began fighting Moonfish. Todoroki had set up ice walls for himself, but Izuku was just breaking the metal, or the metal was breaking into him. He was covering his eyes just to make sure that none of the shards try to enter there, and his mouth so that it doesn't enter his mouth either. So he was just breaking through the shards, but it wasn't enough. Moonfish created more and more and more blades. Toga had attacked Floppy and Ochako. Everything was looking grim. Then Bakugo told Koda to get behind him, that he will make sure that he's safe. Muscular just looked at the kid saying, Katsuki Bakugo. Just the person we were looking for. Bakugo was like, how do you know my name? He said, and then Muscular said that you're on the top of the list, along with another kid, Izuku Midoriya. Don't you even what? I mean, after all, we're just supposed to capture you, so don't worry. I won't hurt you much. Bakugo had powered up to 25% of full cowling, because that is how much he can do without breaking himself. When he starts to feel his muscle tear is when he starts to go to 30%, and then try to attack Muscular. But with his muscular fibers, it was pretty hard. Then he tried to do some explosions, but it wasn't working on him either. He didn't know what was happening. So he tried a stun grenade and then poured an explosion into Muscular's face. But Muscular had withstood the explosion and then punched Bakugo in the stomach, which made him cough up some blood. So Muscular started to enforce his fibers around around Bakugo. But Bakugo just started to take a risk and then let go of a huge explosion just to blow up some of the muscle fibers and then get away. But it didn't come without a cost. His hands started to feel a little bit broken. This was not a fight that he could easily win. He couldn't run away because they would just catch up with him. And he can't let anybody else deal with this. So he still tried more and more explosions, but it wasn't working. So then he tried something else. He tried 100% of his howitzer smash. He started to pelt Muscular with more and more explosions, creating more and more dust. Then he got as far away as possible so that he could gain his momentum. Then he began his howitzer smash. It did send Muscular into the ground, but he just started to get up laughing. You're pretty good, kid. Man, looks like I'll have to try harder if I really need to put you down. Bakugo just looked at Muscular in disbelief, saying, No, no way! Muscular then looked at Bakugo and then saw that his armor was broken. Huh, that's pretty weird, but I don't really care. So, after I've taken you down, I'm just going to kill that kid. You don't mind if that happens, do you? And Bakugo just began to clench his teeth, thinking, what is he supposed to do now? And this is where I'm going to leave it off, guys. Thanks for coming. This is What If Izuku Had Lukage's Powers Part 11. And please, before we go, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and comment down below on any ideas that you have. So this is me, Gratified What If, signing off.